Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Norton Planning Board meeting, Tuesday, November 12th. I believe we have one bill tonight. We'll just get right into it.
Yeah, this one is a bill from SERPID, the Southeastern Regional Planning and Economic Development District. This is for the work they've done to date for the master plan. So it's for $6,609.96.
So what I'll do is, we'll just pass this down and we can take a vote on that after everybody's had a chance to take a look.
Paul, this is just out of our direct budget, or is there a special town?
There's actually a couple of funds, but this one is coming from a grant award we received from the Department of Revenue and their Division of Local Services. It was a grant award we received for $30,000.
Okay.
In addition, though, you'll recall at a previous town meeting, we did receive an approval for $30,000. And then in addition, working with SERPID, we've currently received this year $20,000 with the hopes that we will get the remaining 20, an additional 20 that will take care of the remaining cost of the full project.
Okay.
Excellent. All right, while you all look at that, something that was pointed out to me by Paul and Nicole, actually Paul brought this up as well. A lot of the town boards schedule their meetings well in advance, and I think we've been kind of riding a little close to, every other week, having to schedule for the next week. So I think we should try to schedule at least 6 months ahead. We can do that after the public hearing tonight, just everybody keep that in mind. I'd like to schedule as much in the future as we can. I guess, they get calls and they want to give people particular dates as to when they can come in, and it's hard when we don't have a schedule, so. And it's probably going to be easier for everyone if we know well in advance when we're going to be here.
I might say we should stop at the end of March as far as we go
Yeah.
out because of April elections.
Yeah, we can still schedule them out. It's just you and I think, this year. Yeah.
It's 30% of the board.
But do keep in mind, with town meeting coming up and trying to avoid some of the, trying to improve on process, if we were able to schedule, past town meeting at least, because there may be an extra meeting that we want to put in there, depending, to make sure you have adequate time to review proposals, it would be helpful.
Well, we have a standard sequence, right? The first and third Tuesday of every month or something? Is that
That's what it used to be. We've kind of somewhat stuck to that, but because we're scheduling them so short notice, I think everybody's schedules have already been booked. So if we do it far in advance, I think we should be all right.
Start with that if you're doing months
Yeah.
in advance.
Yeah.
Change
So-
them if we get closer and there's problems.
Just, that's what I want to look at before we go. So I know I tend to, look for closing the meeting quickly after everything's done. So I want to make sure we get that done tonight. Are there any questions on that invoice so far?
It's not all the way down yet. So.
All right. So we can go over to the minutes. These are from October 17th. I believe we didn't approve these because we didn't get them in time the last time we had them in front of us. Is that right?
No,
Okay.
you may not have had enough people at the meeting
Yeah.
that were in attendance at this one.
I think that's the case.
Yeah, so,
I
do
think
we have
it's
any?
upstairs.
Yeah, do we have any changes on this? I looked through it, I didn't see anything, but.
Just the spelling on the motion to close, my name is A-L, S-I-J-L, you got it right in the next one?
All right. Any further changes on those? Not hearing any, I'll take a motion to approve these. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Abstain. 2 abstentions.
Oops, who's abstaining? Okay.
Kevin and I.
All right, has everybody had a chance to look through this invoice? Without any questions, I'll take a motion to approve this.
So moved.
A motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion?
What's the total amount?
$6,609.96. Okay, motion and a second. All in favor? Aye, opposed? That was Joe and Tim, right?
Correct.
All right, moving right along. We have a public hearing for SP 486, 60 West Main Street, Cumberland Farms. All right, this was continued from June 4th and August 20th. Oh, and September 10th.
Just
So we're going to get a little refresher.
for the record, I missed the September 10th meeting and watched it today, so I'd be eligible to vote.
And I have the form and have signed it.
Okay.
No, but that's fine. Very careful.
If you might just state your...
Whenever I'm ready? Okay, great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Tom Reedy. I'm an attorney with Bacon Wilson out of Amherst here on behalf of Cumberland Farms, and its application, as the chairman noted. With me this evening, Tracy Roll, the preferred developer, Maureen Schlebeck, our traffic engineer, John Marchand with Farland Corp., who's our civil engineer. So just to kind of give you a refresher of where we've been, where we are, and where we hope to go. So we started this process about a year ago with some of the town staff, met with them in November, and then again this year in March. We submitted our special permit and site plan review application to you, I think in May, were heard in June, then a couple of continuations, and then heard again in September and October. And then, as you know, there was the issue with the Water Resource Protection District, just most recently at town meeting. Town meeting voted by a supermajority to accept or approve the zoning amendment, which would allow by special permit underground storage of liquid petroleum in a Water Resource Protection District Zone 3. We have not yet submitted that special permit. That will be going to Paul Thursday, and so hopefully that will be noticed and will be able to be heard on that at your next meeting, so December 3rd. And so I think given where everything is at, the peer reviewer is looking over stormwater. I think they received the plans last Thursday. I know we had submitted those to Paul last Thursday, and I think your town reviewer is reviewing them with our civil engineer. So we can talk about them. If you want to talk about them, we're happy to do it, but those peer review comments aren't back yet. The last time we were here in October, we spoke sufficiently about some of the site changes that we made as a result of some of the comments that Paul had made, that the planning board had made, and some of the abutters had made, things like shifting that building up, changing the access aisles, et cetera. And we can get more into that if you'd like this evening, but again, that hasn't fully been reviewed yet, so I think maybe December 3rd is more appropriate for that. So hopefully this evening, what we can use it for is traffic. And so I think you should have in your packet, and hopefully have had the opportunity to review, your peer reviewer's response to our traffic engineer's report. And so probably the best people to talk about that are those two. And so I'll turn it over to Maureen if she wants to give a brief overview, and then let your peer reviewer take it from there.
Tom, before you go do that.
Yeah, of course.
On the file, I think there was a new site package dated November 1st. Is that a different plan?
Mainly, but yes, I think what that does is updates the stormwater, because as you recall, there was peer review comment to the initial site design. There were never any revisions to that initial site design, because that's when everything came up with the Water Resource Protection District. And Cumberland Farms says, well, let's take a step back, let's see where this project actually ends up to see if it's viable. And with town meeting vote, it became viable, so John hustled and put the stormwater report together, put together the site plan in further response to what that peer reviewer had said. So yes, it's a new site plan.
And before the next meeting, could you maybe just call out what?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll put a letter together and just highlight, and then maybe put a red box around those items that we changed from that initial submission so
Thank you,
that you
thank
can
you.
see them. Yeah, of course.
Good evening, Maureen Schlebeck from McMahon Associates. We did the traffic study for the project, and I did do a summary of the traffic study at a prior meeting. So what I was going to do tonight was focus on the peer review and our comment responses back, unless you want a recap of the study. I'm happy to do that.
Peer reviewers here too.
Yeah, we can do the peer review.
Okay. Yeah, so we did our traffic study back in May of 2019. Vanessa and Associates provided a peer review late May of 2019. McMahon then responded with comment responses in June, and we just got a comment letter back from VA dated November 4th. So there were 11 different comments on the traffic study, most of which are resolved. Some of them were clerical in nature, like, you know, for example, the first one where they wanted a professional engineer certification shown. So some of them were of that nature, and some of them had to do with the details of the traffic study. So for instance, there were things suggested, like in the AM peak hour, that we look at the 7 to 8 AM peak hour due to the school traffic. So we did do an analysis on that and submitted it. And they were satisfied with our analysis. It didn't differ all that much from what we had presented previously. They had suggested that we look at Saturday traffic volumes, so we collected counts and did an analysis for Saturday. It actually turns out that the Saturday peak hour is 21% lower than the weekday peak hour. So again, we had already looked at the worst situation for a peak hour. There were suggestions about bicycle accommodations and mass transit, which I feel that we have addressed, and VI had indicated no further response required. I think I'm losing your microphone. There were some tweaks to the traffic projection model. We had done some bus rerouting to account for how the school buses go in and out of the site, so that was clarified. Okay. Tell me if I need to talk more into it. Pass-by trips were qualified in the peer review back and forth. We looked at the school peak hour versus the AM and PM peak hours, again, as I mentioned before, and still found that the PM peak was higher. There was some tweaks to the assignment of the pass-by traffic, which has been resolved. There was discussion on the queue analysis. We actually went out and did field measurements of the queue analysis and indicated that the queues that are created from the school traffic do not extend to the site driveway. Those issues have been resolved between McMahon and VI. Peak hour factors were, again, tweaked in the analysis. It didn't make a difference, but they were changed in accordance with their comment. And it didn't make a difference in the final conclusions. Trying to see if there's anything else worth noting. They had suggested consideration of a center turn lane, and we looked into that, but really the left turn volumes throughout this roadway segment don't warrant that. There's really just the conflicts at the school predominantly, so the center left turn lane would not solve the issues on the adjacent roadway. So again, with the 11 comments that were really specific to the traffic study, are all no further response required from VI. They did make some comments on the site plan, which I think John and I collectively could address here tonight. One is dealing with the truck turning templates in and out of the site. The second one was a note being added to the site plan that all signs and pavement markings need to conform with the manual of uniform traffic control devices. We will add that to the plan. And then there was comments about site triangles at the site driveways, and we have that information for you here tonight. The fourth comment on the site plan was about loading, deliveries, trash, and recycling, and we'll speak to you tonight on how that's managed. And then the last comment was about a sidewalk connection between the convenience store and the sidewalk. So unless you have questions on the traffic portion. I think I'll have John address those comments if that's fine with the board. Sure.
So just to confirm, this is, all of these data and these responses are based on measurements that were done back in May. So I think at a previous meeting, we'd kind of asked a few questions about traffic, and those are not reflected in this, correct? This is just addressing the comments from Van Essen Associates?
Yeah, so we had responded in June 13th is our response letter, and that we had collected data for those responses.
Right.
But since then, we have not collected more data.
Because I know at least we had asked for some data on eastbound queues, particularly in peak morning. Because I know those back up pretty much to the site.
Yeah, well, what we found when we were out there is you have a 15-minute, swath of traffic out there due to the schools. The other thing, when we were out doing our observations, we did notice that the people that are directing traffic were very good at kind of managing those queues. I think you see this in every town where, particularly the high school, you just get everybody coming in a 15-minute period. I'm not sure we can solve that for you.
I'm talking about eastbound towards the intersection of.
Oh, towards the signal, okay.
Because I know that's something that we had brought up previously. I
Yeah,
know that does back up to the site.
yeah, we
Backs
didn't,
up beyond the site,
okay.
Yeah.
No, we did not collect queue data for eastbound.
Okay.
Yeah, you finished?
That was, yeah, because I know
Yeah.
we'd mentioned that before, so I was.
I thought there was going to be some more traffic data, and I thought you responded last time that it took place on June 13th. And I thought you had mentioned that was probably after the high school had let out in part.
Yeah, the high school was already out.
That was the.
Or,
that
I'm
was
sorry,
the
the
date of
seniors,
letter.
the seniors were out.
Right.
Well, no, we asked what the date, that was the date of the letter. We asked the date of the survey, and they said at that time it was the same, it was June 13th. And I
Yeah,
thought
we,
you raised that
we,
question.
we had a meeting when was our meeting in June that we reviewed this, whatever the date was. So the meeting in June, when we reviewed the traffic study, it was, I think it was the same week as when the high school was getting out. I think it was earlier that, like June 1st or something.
Yeah, school was not yet out. I think there was, we were doing the study in May and June, so we were down to the wire in terms of dates. So we did collect the data while the high school was still in session.
Do you know if the senior class was still in session? I'm trying to look on the calendar here to see at the end of May.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the exact date that we were out
They get
there.
out a couple weeks before the rest of the school.
I think that's what we talked about,
Yeah.
because I know it wasn't the full.
Yeah, it
the full
wasn't the
queue.
full school, it was a partial.
And when we last discussed it and asked for the modification of the traffic study, I know that there was really no time left to do it correctly before the end of the school year. So whenever that meeting was, June 1st, 2nd, whatever, school
June
got out like
4th.
3 days later. What was that?
June 4th.
June 4th. So school was getting out like the next day for everybody. So maybe for the seniors and a few days later for everybody else. But I think there wasn't any time to do anything extra back in June. So I was hoping that you would do the revisions this fall when school got back into session with all of the grades, including the seniors.
Yeah, so we have not done additional counts. As I said, the school situation is common in every town, at every high school, where you get that surge of traffic and then it dissipates. So you have a dense 15 minutes at the beginning of school and at the end of school. The traffic eastbound going towards the signal, does that fall into your village study? Are there improvements being considered?
It might, but any changes to that would be 10 years out at least.
Yeah.
So that's not
Yeah,
something that
I think
would be
one
considered mitigation in this case.
thing to consider particularly with this land use, is it is a convenience land use. People go to it when it's convenient, and I never like saying this in front of Cumberland Farms, but I can cite you examples like Johnston, Rhode Island, where there's a dominant flow of traffic, and people only go to the store from that dominant flow of traffic. If they have to make a left turn, they don't make a left turn. If they're going to get blocked in there, they don't go. They alter, they get gas and pick up milk at other times of the day. So I can appreciate your concerns with the extended queue from the Signal and/or the high school. But again, with this land use, it's more of a risk on Cumberland Farms business, because people are not going to get trapped in that, particularly the people that drive through this every day.
What's the ratio of pass-through users you use as a standard in the study?
So we use, what we use is based upon what's published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, and it's 63% pass-by in the morning, 66% pass-by in the evening. Cumberland Farms has done their own studies that show it's even higher. So, but, to be conservative, we use the national averages.
But now that doesn't take into account the fact that you're saying people would not go there during those active hours. They'll choose to go there not as a pass-through, but to go there when it's not busy?
Well, they'll choose to go there when they can turn right into the site and leave the site and turn right.
Does that
Still a
affect-
pass-through, it's
Instead of
just a
going
different
westbound,
pass-through.
yeah.
Yeah, as opposed to having to turn left into the site, and then when they leave, they have to make another left out against the traffic.
But the pass-through conditions, the standard ones, are based upon not being in front of a high school that has 500 cars coming out during a particular time of day. So does that alter the pass-through criteria that you use?
So the more pass-by traffic, they're going to attract however many trips they're going to attract. The more traffic that comes from as pass-by, that means that's less new trips on the surrounding street system. So it's actually less of an impact if they pull more traffic, more of the existing traffic off the surrounding street network. So, to your point, they may get more pass-by because the high school is right there, but that means it's less new trips coming.
Well, that may not necessarily be the case if you're going from Mansfield on 140 through the center of town to Taunton, because a lot of people cut through Norton that live in the Taunton area. And if they need gas, and they know there's a gas station there now, they may pull off on
Probably
Main
hit the
Street,
one
and then-
closer to Xfinity Center, because it'd be on the right side.
Yeah.
Right.
It's even the same brand.
Well, if they were coming from Easton on 123, there's a pretty big gap for gas stations,
Yeah.
so it's very possible cars would continue, rather than just turn onto 140. They could stop at the station or the Speedway and then come back, but
Yeah.
I think that would still be considered pass-through, since it's still generally in the same area, and the car was already on the road between one destination to another.
Well, I think going 123 from Attleboro going west, then your statement is correct. If they go to the gas station, it's probably alleviating traffic that would have gone in other directions, Freeman Street or whatever the case is. So, but I think that's kind of a broad statement in other scenarios where I don't really know. Who knows? You're the traffic engineer, but my question was back in June 4th when we met. We had a discussion like this, and we went through a lot of different things, and we talked about the time of the studies in the AM and the PM and the school traffic and such, and we talked about the superintendent's letter of concern as well. And my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, was that you were going to go back and do some supplemental studies post-January 4th. And then when we closed the meeting, and the next day later, I realized, I don't know how they're going to do that, because school's going to get out within a week. And then I expected those studies to be done, this year, September, October.
We did coordinate with VI. We kind of moved at the direction of the remaining issues on their peer review letter, so I apologize that we didn't go back out there, but again, that was listed as a resolved issue. We didn't feel we had to keep going with that one.
Yeah,
You all
I think,
remember that conversation?
I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but I think a few of us were not agreeing with the numbers that were there, based on, my own personal experience at 8:15 is when I drive my daughter to school, and the line is, going eastbound back past my office, which is past the high school, and the other way, it's the same thing, so it's,
Yeah,
I think we were looking for a different time period. My understanding was that we were waiting to, or you were waiting to see what happened at town meeting before doing those further studies. So that, we may be jumping the gun on it as far as if there were going to be further studies, but
Yeah, and we had asked for some cues, in particular showing that backup. The information you furnished to us, could you explain that? You show the backup coming back down the high school.
Yeah, so there's
So that's
different,
morning peak? Why would we
Yeah, I
have backup going to the high school in the morning peak?
yeah, can I just see? Yeah. So what we do is we typically estimate 50% cues and 85th percentile
But
cues.
wouldn't the queue go back this way? I mean, why would it be going to the high school? Does it back up the high school?
It backs up past my office all the way.
No,
yeah.
this is coming the high school road.
Oh, into the high school?
Yeah,
Out.
Oh,
into
out
the
of the
high
high
school,
school.
not that way.
The only thing I can think of is when they're getting out of school, there's a backup.
Well, this is
But-
AM.
Well, I drive by there and frequently especially when the buses come,
drop-offs, yeah.
there's a lot of drop-offs in the morning.
But this,
Yeah, the yell is a little bit
That's a
later.
shared driveway.
That's, I think that was the question initially, because the yell is later than the high school. So that time discrepancy,
so it backs up that far in the,
I haven't driven my daughter graduated, but
So-
I believe when we dropped her off, we did have to wait to come out, so
so,
I don't know if
okay,
you
so
can-
just so I understand. So if it backs up that far and it backs up past there, do you have a backup on the turn? You have 48 on the queue, which is 48 feet? On the
48
left-hand
feet.
turn going into school.
Yes, 48 feet, which is about 2 cars.
And that doesn't. And because that's why we're interested in seeing what the queue was going toward Mansfield Avenue and Taunton Avenue. If that's coming back past that, I can't imagine that's not backing up even further. That's why-
Yeah, I mean, we provided the queue lengths in our responses. You know, again, it was a June count, so we didn't see any queues that extended to the site in either direction when we were out there. And I'll qualify it by, it was, you know, if you were saying the seniors were not in, maybe that was the difference,
AM and
but,
PM?
what's that?
Both the AM and the PM?
I believe we,
No, the comment about not seeing any cues back?
that was the AM.
Okay. Did you look
Yeah.
at the PM as well?
I believe I'm not sure, let me double check that before I say.
Because I get probably half a dozen videos on my phone on the PM between 2 and 3, and it was backed all the way up to the high school entry almost.
Yeah, I was saying before the meeting, my office is past the high school, and at 5 when I leave, it's already backed up past my office going that way, almost to Freeman Street sometimes. I'm chalking a little bit of it up to the sewer project right now, so I don't want to put that all on
Well,
traffic, but
I guess, what are you using as the impacted streets? Under our bylaws, one of the objectives talks about traffic, and in it talks about the level of service.
Right.
And it says impacted streets. I know when they did the Blue Star, they looked at Mansfield and Taunton Street, and they went as far as Foundry Street going the other way. And our bylaw talks about, means intersections projected to receive at least 10% of the anticipated average daily or peak hour traffic generated from the proposed development. And I suggest that Mansfield would certainly qualify, Mansfield Avenue would qualify under the impacted definition under our bylaws.
Yeah, I mean, this is a much smaller site development than the Blue Star.
But it's still impacted in terms of the number of cars you have coming out would be more than 10% are going that way. And they're not turning off anyway, other than going straight through it.
Through the intersection. We did not include that intersection in our study.
Okay, is it possible to do that? Because that'll bring you back into the queues, so we can see how far back that comes, and that's,
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would have to point out too, though, it was peer-reviewed by another traffic engineering firm who didn't have any issues with our study area. This is, what we looked at for the study area is pretty common for this type of development.
did you review our bylaw?
No, I did not.
Okay. It also has a problem in terms, it says, for projects developed, the level of service for any impacted intersections and streets affected by the proposed project shall not be reduced below, and then it's level D, or the existing level of service, whichever is lower, for in arterial intersections or streets.
That intersection's already an F, so that's hard.
It is, but the problem is, you have a delay of a no build of 810, it goes up to 882 for a delay. And you can't just say, once it's failing no matter what you do. Yeah, at some point, we got to understand the extent to which it's going to make worse that failure. I mean, if it says, okay, it's only 2 seconds more, I don't care. But we're talking about another, 80 seconds, another minute and a half, when 50 seconds is failure. In a level of service, it's almost like double that. You're talking about, we're talking about 884 when a level of service is 50. So we got a problem that we're really trying to wrap our hands around.
So the numbers that you're throwing out, the delay numbers are not on West Main Street. Those are driveway
Those
delays.
are the numbers I got off of your sheet.
Are you citing queue numbers, or are you citing delay
I'm
numbers?
citing, no, these are level of service numbers.
Right, so what I'm saying is,
Right.
at our site, we are not affecting the traffic on West Main Street. That remains level service A. They still have the right-of-way, we're not stopping that traffic. So what you'd call the side streets, in this case, tends to be the driveways, are the ones that are having those longer delays of 50 seconds. I mean, I think you see that along that whole stretch of West Main Street right now, due to those two scenarios that you've identified, the schools and the signal.
Well, it's going from a no build to a build. It's increasing by 70 seconds from your numbers.
Yeah,
This is on level of service in front of the high school, that intersection. The queues are increasing by 20 feet. The level of service in front of Bagels and Creams is increasing from a D, no build, to an E. Again,
Yes.
those are, so I want
Yeah.
to, we need to understand that, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
The other question I had was, you gave us some turning radiuses, what was it? It was, it was in this.
is it the turns in and out of the site? No.
These schedules?
Yep.
Okay. What I'm trying to follow is, in mapping, and it goes through the series, but I'm looking at the build, the no build, the build. And what you seem to do is, you show the turning left and right for the non-pass-through. So if I'm reading this correctly, you have a pass-through of, let's say, 33. So you're showing that pass-through, I'm looking at the figure 8, I know, let's see, it's figure 9 on your plan,
Okay.
on your original. You have that? And basically, you're showing the turning in of 32 and turning back in the same direction, the 32, which I'm assuming is the non-pass-through.
Are
So the
you
people
on,
come
you're
in-
on figure 9?
Yeah?
Figure 9?
Figure 9. Out of the site, you
Okay.
have 329 going west. So we're talking, that's really...
West is towards Allen.
It's really south, but it's west? Okay. And then you show, of that, 32 is turning into the site.
Mm-hmm.
And then across the street, you say that same 32 goes back the same way. So I'm assuming those are the non-pass-through trips. My question is, what happened to the other 56 trips that are going in and end up going in the same direction, so they're pass-through? How do we show those as those in that turn?
So I believe in the appendix, we actually have the pass-through called out, but we also have a traffic projection model, which is a huge Excel spreadsheet that defines each pass-by movement and each new trip in the direction, which was reviewed by your peer review engineer.
Well, but my question was how, my concern is those people making left-hand turns. So if
Yeah.
someone's going, it's really south, but let's say it's west, and they turn into the gas station. Then they want to go back the same way, because it's pass-through, it's going the same way. They have to cross over that line of traffic again and going west.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to say, well, they may not want to do that, but if they're running out of gas, I'm assuming they
Right.
want them to do that. But you don't show those numbers where the other
You're right.
56 are.
So if you look at, If you look at figure 6, that was how we assigned the trips. So we based it on the flow of the road and just said, over the course of the day, 50% heads eastbound, 50% heads westbound. And you're right, we applied those rates in the peak hour, which is probably not what's going to happen realistically. That's a very conservative estimate of the projected traffic. It's going, honestly, based on the observations I've done, based on the number of gas stations I've done, it's not going to be that many lefts because it's not going to be convenient for people to leave that site by means of a left.
Well, but
People will
that's-
just go another quarter mile and hit Speedway.
But that's the real concern, and then when we're talking about a center lane, if you're having 56 people coming that way, technically, that's what you're saying happens in the peak hours, and 56 they're coming in and going out the same direction. That means they're crossing over that line twice.
Yes.
So it's not 56, but it's certainly more than 32.
Yeah,
So it'll be, so I'm just want to get a sense of that, because that's my concern, of seeing those left-hand turns coming across both directions, across a line of traffic that's backed up past his office. And
Yeah, and I mean, if you put yourself in the place of the patrons that are going to the site, if you see that traffic backed up like that, and you have to turn left into the site and then fight that traffic to come back out, are you going to stop there for a gallon of milk? Again, it's a convenient land use. It's not going to be used by anyone who's inconvenienced getting there. And just going back to the center turn lane, one of the things, too, to keep into account is when you have to reallocate your street space, you want to consider all your users. So right now, you have a fairly generous shoulder that protects your cyclists. So if you put in a center turn lane, you're going to be down to a shoulder that's not compatible for cyclists.
And how does that impact our Safe Streets, walkable initiative? What's that called? again?
Complete streets?
Complete Streets. How does that comment it?
Well, again, that is a project identified in Complete Streets to convert that to a bike lane eventually, so
It would squeeze that bike lane out.
you would
sounds
lose
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You would lose, would be so narrow that you wouldn't want to encourage people to ride there at that point.
So that's not good, especially since it's a major interchange going, through the
Right.
town.
And near the schools, which
Yeah.
would
Right.
be a high potential bicycling population.
So it's fair to say that would be in conflict with our Complete Streets program.
It would certainly, it
would
would
impact it,
affect it
yeah.
directly.
what is that, I'm sorry?
Adding the turn lane is going to squeeze out the bike lane, which is part of our Complete Streets plan. So basically, you wouldn't have a bike lane going through that, where that turn lane is going into Cumberland Farms.
Well, they've done it in other locations. You can basically give up some land yourself and dedicate some land and make it into a bike lane so it comes into the property and take it away from their frontage of the property.
That's tough.
It's done all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
That's how you create those lanes. And then the other question you had is, I saw that there was, one other question, two questions. There was reference to a filing for, an ENF. Is that,
Yeah.
do you feel you're required to file an ENF?
Are we required to file one? Yes.
Have you?
Not at this point. Right, we usually do that after we have town approval. We'll also be required to go to MassDOT for a curb access permit, and we would do that after we have town approval.
You file an ENF afterwards? After the permit?
We would file it after we have approval from the town to move forward on the site.
Okay. You also, you had also mentioned, you had some crash data, and you separated basically the crash data you provided is, from what I could tell, almost within one block radius of each other, one regular block. And within that, you got 13 crashes, even though each location is less than the .75, collectively, over that same period of time, you had 13 crashes, and you have .79 collectively, which is over the 5.7. And I don't know, is that something
Yeah,
that
so-
you
so-
take into account, or you don't bother taking it into account?
I mean, we could look at a roadway segment and apply a roadway segment crash rate, but looking at those, the crash rates are so low, and again, the crash rate takes the number of crashes and relates it to the volume of traffic going through that location, that even if we were to accumulate those and consider the distance, it's still going to be a low crash rate.
Oh, it'll come up to 7.9.
You can't just add those, because it's crashes per million entering vehicles. You'd have to do all the calculations again.
Do we have any other questions?
I-
Go ahead, Julie.
So on comment 7 regarding the bus routing, it says school buses currently use the main high school driveway are proposed to be rerouted to a new driveway west of the study area. Can you tell me where the buses are going now and where you are proposing the rerouting?
Well, that was information we got from the town about how the school buses were going to be rerouted.
Anybody?
Anybody?
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Anyone?
It doesn't mean it's not.
There's a member of the audience who is raising their hand. I'm not sure if this is the.
Oh, you know, okay.
Yeah, so they,
W-
I guess there's.
Do you want, I'm sorry, ma'am, do you want to just, yeah,
Not to put you on the spot.
Just because-
I'm very curious.
just because it relates to this question, just say
Yeah.
your name and your address.
Sharon Wayfew, Seminary Way, Norton. There's an entrance now that used to be just an access road entrance. The buses are leaving the school. Behind the school near the dentist, there's a house there.
The buses
Okay.
are
So
going that
they're,
way?
they're going out that way, but it's blocked off during the day. No one can go in or out, just the buses.
Do you know when that started?
I think.
This year?
Yeah, this year, yeah.
And that's for the high school buses leaving only?
So that they're not in conflict, I think, with the traffic drop-off for the high school and for the kids. So it's a separate exit, so they don't have to wait in that queue to get out onto 123.
Okay.
Where does
That's
that-
only the buses, Sharon, not the students?
Only the buses.
Okay, thank you.
How did none of us know about that?
Where does it come out to?
It's before Freeman, before you get to Freeman if you're going that way.
Across from the Dunkin' Donuts, the
Across-
yellow Dunkin' Donuts right across.
Yeah.
So they
So it's coming-
exit there?
So it's
Yes.
coming around the site?
Yeah, I know the area she's talking about.
a
I
back.
thought it was a dirt road, but it must be a regular
It's
road.
paved now, yeah.
So it's coming to the eastern side of the site,
No, the western side,
the western side of the site?
yeah.
Or south.
The Attleboro side.
Is that on here?
I don't know.
No, it's off.
Yeah, the high school's on your
Bottom
left, you just keep
Down
going
here.
past the high school, it's further
Down
down.
this way? Okay.
But the buses that have to go through the light are still going through the light, not going a different direction.
Yeah, those would still
Just
be
getting
taking
out
the
of
right.
the property faster, but they're still taking the right, the ones that are taking the right today are still taking the right. out
So
of
they're
there.
not going out that new,
Just the buses are going out that way, I guess.
whether they're gonna go left or right on 123?
Right, that's
Okay.
correct.
So
Yeah,
the
'cause we're-
buses are only coming in this driveway and then out by the dentist? Does that sound
Yeah.
right? Paul, could we just get clarification on that from the school?
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you just mind, just to make sure
No,
that
we'll
we're
fact
modeling
check
it
it.
correctly, so that we're not double counting, recounting? So I'm just slightly confused myself, so if.
I
if
think
we
it's
could
a,
just
I've
double,
heard
triple check
conversations
that.
about
Not that I
this.
don't-
I've heard a lot of conversations about this, and way back when I was on the school committee, I did a lot of work with the bus routes and such, so the idea is, the buses, when they wait to get out of the lot, behind all of the other traffic, individual automotive traffic, it delays them getting to the next, dropping off the kids, getting to the next school. They're in a string of four tiers, if you would. So every, compounded delay affects all the way through the system until they get to the JCS, and they're dropping kids off at, 4:30, 4:45 when it's dark out.
Yeah, I think
So
it makes sense.
Yeah, so the idea
Yeah.
is to get them out first, and I'm sure they hold up the other cars and let them go down 123 to the light and kind of get a little bit jump start, so it makes sense.
Okay.
But they still go through the light. The ones that went through the light today still go, so they're still contributing to the traffic, they're just getting out of the school quicker. And they're in front of the traffic rather than being in the middle of it.
So that's being used now, as opposed to this is being proposed to reroute. So it's,
Did they just start it this year, Sharon? Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, the only thing that would do would be to slow down the queue coming out of the high school. I mean, that's,
Right.
or speed it up. Yeah,
Reduce it.
yes,
Coming out, yeah.
yeah. But then they're still coming, yeah. Is it still gonna be traffic,
Clarification
but
on that.
Does the Yellen School have there's a circle, do they have a separate one, or they?
there is, it would be directly after their site.
So-
Take a left, it's before the Yale School, so it's right in there.
Yeah, so the buses come in here for the Yell. So they'll pull in, and they kind of circle around here, let the kids off, and then they can come back out. So all the Yell buses use this driveway. If you're doing pickup or drop-off personally, you use what's labeled the high school driveway. So like if I was gonna drop my son off, I'd come in here, drop him off, and then circle back out.
What is that circle, the semicircle?
This, that's
The very
just,
front.
yeah, it's
front of
just ornamental.
Oh,
And employees,
It's grandfathered in.
Used.
it used to be the
for-
original high
yeah.
school entry.
The original drop-offs.
Yes.
Not currently used, Orin.
Okay.
This is, not used, you'll see people park there for special events and
How
things
can
like
we
that,
use-
but it's not used for
Do we
transportation
have,
purposes right
do
now
you
for buses.
pick up that entry on your data? That other entry?
No, we picked up the first school driveway. That was it. We didn't pick up the circular road.
Not the circular one, but the first
The
one?
first one, the one right adjacent to our site, yeah.
Did you have that? Elementary school, okay.
And I don't want to speak for the crossing guard, but I had some conversations with her, and coming out of that Yell School Drive that you're referring to, that's like right next to, the new property, the Cumberland Farms proposed property. So there are concerns there with, buses merging out right where there's an entry coming into the Cumberland Farms lot, as well as students on bicycles, walking, anything else, and students coming down from Wheaton College. So all of that with multiple, lanes that are basically, 20 yards apart from one another, was a concern for the traffic guard as well for the school. So. Not as much of a traffic issue, but more of a potential safety issue.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Yeah, certainly. Julie, was that your only?
Yeah, that was my only one that just slightly confusing on my part, but I think I get a better understanding of it now, so thank you.
Do we have anyone else with questions on the board here?
No, I think I'll perhaps go back and review the minutes and the video of the June meeting and review what our comments actually were about the eastbound queues.
I know we made a lot of comments on the
So
queues.
that's why I want to reread
And the
it.
timeframes.
Because remember, June 13th
That's-
was noted in my
I'm just
comments.
gonna go back and look at the record.
It was
and
after
I'll-
June.
We'll follow up.
It was later than
Yeah.
that. It wasn't the June 4th. Because there's an,
Whatever the meeting was, I'll just
Okay.
review that video and follow up through Paul appropriately.
Yeah, what I had said earlier-
Same thing.
What I had said earlier was, yeah, I want to make sure that we were on the right timeframes as far as the queues, because I know that was, my particular contention was that the data didn't show what I physically saw every morning, so, yeah, I think it's a good idea to review the tapes and just to make sure that we're on the same page.
It did not sound from that conversation like the time periods that were studied were the peak time periods. When we had the discussion, we kind of evolved at different peak time periods, the
Yeah.
AM and the PM. And then,
Whether
And I
that's
wanna-
just recalculating
And
the
my
same
expectation
study, maybe
was
that's
that-
just maybe the larger window had been measured, they needed to shift the window.
maybe, but from the
however we-
feedback, it didn't sound like that window was captured in the original study, so.
I agree.
I was thinking, was it extrapolated from the data? I either expected a new study to be done this fall, because at that point in the conversation, it wasn't understood that the data that was studied captured the peak periods.
Yeah, which is
Sounded
what I
like
was
more-
saying. I didn't want to speak for the board on that, but yeah, that's absolutely what I thought. And,
Could I speak to that?
yeah, just one second. And my thought was that another study would be done after, yes or no on town meeting. So obviously that's happened. So, go ahead.
So we counted Thursday, October 25th, from 7 to 9 a.m. We found the peak hour to be 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. So the regular hours of the Yelly School is 8:30 a.m. start time, right? And the high school has a 7:40 a.m. start time. So doing 7:30 to 8:30 covers those start times, but your peer review traffic engineers did ask that we evaluate 7 to 8 as well for the different turning movements that might be occurring, and we did do that in our responses to them.
Right, I think we were all, I think looking back at the tape, I think Tim's got it right. Look back and see what our comments were, because I know there was a difference, and I know that 7:30 to 8:30 is, for me, is the peak, but it could be different for others, so.
Are you-
Yeah, so both were analyzed, 7:30, 8:30 was
This
analyzed.
past October, last month?
No.
No.
last year.
A year ago.
2018? Okay.
I mean, the study was finished in May, but the counts had been collected in October of 2018.
Yeah, I think we're talking circles around it now. I think we should review our notes and figure out what we're actually looking for here. So anyone further questions on this?
Not on the traffic this time.
Not on the train?
Well, just one comment. I mean, obviously, you folks are not responsible for our current traffic conditions.
Yeah.
So we understand that. And if there's an increase, whatever the percentage is, that's good. And if it's acceptable to the peer review and us, that's fine. But our perspective is, mine at least, is we already have a traffic problem. Why would we want to contribute to it at any degree, any percentage increase? Because, you know, we have issues that currently exist with traffic, and you mentioned them earlier, trying to get to work, and we have a certain level of safety concern as well with students, and, you know, Wheaton students as well as the public students, and other people that are on bicycles or walking, and, you know, why would we want to add to that? Understanding that you bear no responsibility for our existing traffic concerns, but why would we as a community want to add to those concerns? So that's my only comment.
Yeah, and I think, you know, if we were, I think we need to make sure, my contention is that I want to make sure we have the correct data on it, to make the right decision, at least for my part of it. So I think we can, unless there's any questions from anyone in the audience about this traffic, I think we were going to listen to the peer reviewer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board. Sean Kelly with Vanassen Associates. I think Maureen did a good job walking through all of our points. We can go through them again if you'd like, but quite frankly, as far as the traffic study goes, the responses that they've issued, we felt were satisfactory and addressed the comments we had issued in the initial study. They did certify that the study was done by a PE. They did, as they mentioned, determine they were applicable to MEPA review, and they're filing an ENF for the project. We talked about, they did some observations of queues. They looked at the analysis from 7 to 8 in addition to the 7:30 to 8:30. And I believe I understand was the 7:30 to 8:30 may have been the peak of the road, but the 7 to 8 was the peak of the high school, so they've looked at both of those now. We had requested the Saturday analysis again. They looked at the volumes on Saturday. Saturday volumes are significantly lower, on the order of 20% approximately. Their volumes aren't any higher on a Saturday, so that the combined condition would be less conservative than what they've looked at, so we agreed with them on that. We requested information on bike and transit. They provided that as well, and again, they did some queue observations. Based on what they've submitted today, again, really it came down to just 5 comments relative to the site plan, which dealt with truck turning radii and showing how the path of delivery vehicles, fuel delivery vehicles, and fire apparatus to the site. And then some of them were, you know, fairly minor, some notes on the plans indicating that everything gets done in accordance with industry guidelines and federal guidelines with regard to signage and pavement markings. We asked for site triangles, showing where you wouldn't put signs or landscaping to ensure you have safe sight lines. We asked for a narrative on how loading and deliveries would work, and then we asked for sidewalk connection to be shown to 123. So, you know, based on what they've submitted to date, everything that they've done is addressed our initial comments, you know, notwithstanding the comments raised tonight relative to when some of the additional data was collected, if it was, you know, when seniors were in school and what have you. So we have no additional concerns relative to the work that's been submitted to date. Certainly, there may be some additional concerns relative to the data collection time periods and how those queues with the schools and the seniors there, in particular the eastbound queues as well from 140. But based on the information in the initial study, they've addressed all of our comments, and we're satisfied that it's done to industry standards.
Anyone have questions?
Yeah, two questions.
Sure.
Is it typical to file an ENF after you get a permit?
You see it done both ways. You can do it concurrently. This project here, I suspect, is not going to require any additional filings beyond the ENF, so it's not you file it, I believe it's something only over 45 days until you get your certificate back, so it's not uncommon to have the ENF filed after you get your local approvals. I've seen it done both ways many times, so there's nothing.
There's nothing in their filings to reflect what I think some of the board has indicated they visually see on the ground, and that's a queue going back from Mansfield and Taunton Street back past the high school. If those are in fact the queues during that period of time, does that raise any concerns for you?
Well, I think we all know the corridor fairly well, and quite frankly, just to be fully transparent, our firm was actually involved with a prior permitting effort for this site when they were looking to do a strip retail center with a Dunkin' Donuts and what have you. I believe we did look at the 140, 123 intersection, and to no one's surprise, it was a level of service F. There were multiple movements that had long delays, and you see it in the field today. During peak hours, there's often a rolling queue along 123 eastbound during peak hours, and this driveway would operate, really no differently than any other unsignalized commercial driveway between us and that light, which is that people are going to look for gaps in traffic when the queue's rolling. Sometimes you'll have the opportunity to get courtesy gaps where if you're making a left into the site and there's a queue that's rolling and no one's getting anywhere, they'll stop and give you that opportunity to make that left-hand turn in front of them. But certainly there are issues at 140 and 123, and during peak hours, they do extend up and down the corridor.
Well, typically, if that were a normal retail operation or a two-family residence, it's certainly any impact at all would be de minimis because most of that is not during peak hours. Would that be correct?
If it was a residential use?
Residential use or a regular retail use, as opposed to a gas station, which is predicated on the traffic that's being generated and will be used by the people.
From an intensity standpoint, I think you're probably right. I would agree with Maureen in the sense that, if you live in this town and you know the traffic condition in front of the high school, I'd be hard-pressed to think anyone's leaving the house at 7:30 and saying, I'm going to go buy some milk now at that gas station. I mean, the people that are going to go in there during the times when that school is really busy, I suspect many of them are going to be people that are dropping their kids off at school, coming back out and heading out, and they make a stop in and stop out. We have no issue with their pass-by percentages, particularly during the peak hours, because when it is this congested and it is this much volume, people aren't going to go out there unless they're either there to begin with or they really have a need to go there.
But the pass-through itself predicates to going in the same direction.
Correct, that's right.
So if 65% of it is pass-through, that means they're turning in and turning back out again over
Right.
that same line of traffic, if there's any pass-through.
That's right. So some of them will be people, for instance, that go to the school, drop their kids, they're heading back eastbound towards 140, they stop in, get gas, get their pack of cigarettes, whatever it may be, pull back out and make the right-hand turn. Will there be some that go and make the left-hand turn? Certainly, you'll have some of those, but as she had mentioned, typically when you have this level of congestion, you'll often find that the predominant pass-by movement is the movement that has the right in, right out, because it's just more convenient. But there will be some lefts, absolutely, in and out.
And in fact, you mentioned in one situation, you say that there's the westbound queues along 123 observed extend from the high school driveway to the entrance of Dunkin' Donuts?
I believe that the queues they noted went as far back as the Honeydew Donuts.
Honeydew
I
Donuts,
believe,
I'm sorry.
yep.
They wouldn't want me to ever say that.
Wrong brand,
I can
Erase
confirm
that.
that goes way past Honeydew.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question on internal traffic in terms of deliveries? Where are they? I don't see a side service store, so where do trucks park for deliveries? Who's in a position to answer that?
Good evening, John Marchand from Farland Corp. So deliveries would take place in the same location as the trash and recycling dumpster area. the concrete pad in front of that.
But
And there is a
there's-
sidewalk that goes from that to the rear door of the building.
So up in spots 12 and 13 is labeled on the map.
So the assumption is people won't be parking there, or?
Right.
And, but you've got tractor trailers delivering, so how are they gonna fit in 2 spots?
So the store is aware of their delivery schedule. If there's a delivery scheduled for that specific time, they'll have their employees go out and
Yeah.
mark off those spaces with cones or
You don't know when those trucks are gonna show up?
the delivery.
Yeah. I mean, you have, maybe the morning or maybe the afternoon, but you don't know that they're gonna be there at 8 PM or 9 AM, or they're gonna show up. I'm just trying to get a sense of where, how it's gonna affect traffic within the footprint of the property itself.
Sure. So let me hop in there. So Cumberland Farms controls their trucks, because they've got that commissary in Westboro that they'll be able to time when, and they'll be able to communicate with the store to make sure that those spots are open. Otherwise, it's typically box trucks.
Well, no, I mean, I've got a little experience, but albeit
Understood.
some time ago.
Sure.
And, they just show up.
I mean, much more orchestrated now. I mean, frankly, if you've been into a Cumberland Farms, you see that they've got the pizza, the hot dogs, the
Yeah, no,
taquitos, all that stuff.
I'm just
that
trying
comes
to
from-
understand where these trucks are gonna pull in and park, and how that may or may not affect the internal
Sure.
traffic. But I'm not convinced that, employees are gonna go out there and mark out those spots at 9:05 AM, because at 9:06 a truck is gonna be there. It just
Okay.
doesn't happen.
My assumption would be that if it's a tractor trailer, would pull in on the eastbound driveway, go up around the gas tanks, and then back into those spots, would be my assumption. Whether that-
They'll pull in and
Yeah,
back
exactly.
in this way.
Right, yeah.
Um,
They'll go up
and-
this way and back up, and,
No, they'll pull in this way.
yeah, exactly. We're saying the same thing.
All right, but my point is, there'll be cars parked there, and if they're,
It'll be interesting, it'll be an interesting swing, and that's, I think one of the comments from the peer reviewer was truck turning,
Yeah, we have extra.
so.
To add to that, my question is, the other Cumberland Farms on 140, the parking spots are always filled there.
Yeah.
And so how do you handle, do you know about that site and how they handle the deliveries there?
Mansfield Ave.
Yes.
I don't, I can ask, but what I will say is I think it's a 3,600 square foot store, and I think there's 11 spaces there. You've got a 4,300 square foot store here and 24 spaces here, plus I think a much better layout of a site here. And if it can work over there, then I'd suggest it can work over here too. But I think it does come
Yeah.
down to control. I mean, Cumberland Farms does have a lot of control over the trucks that are coming from their Westboro site.
Okay, I don't recall if it's not even marked as spots where they deliver or not, so
And we can always
Ask.
designate, I mean,
Yeah.
we have, according to your bylaw, we have extra spots. Cumberland obviously wants more spots to allow for more convenience. I think we could probably mark those employee spots if needed to make sure that they are in fact vacant, or we could even take a look at just striping those out in front of the dumpster.
well, again, I ask because you've got this area marked off as landscape area. I mean, that's thoughtful, but it seems to me to be more practical if a truck could back in there. If there was a service door on the side, then,
I don't know that we're going to get that service store on the side. I think so they're pretty consistent with the way that they lay these buildings out, because they've had a lot of practice at it and they know what works and what doesn't work, and so having that service door in the back.
all due respect, I mean, I go to Cumberland, and virtually every one of them is laid out differently.
I think in different time periods, yes, and I think what I would suggest is continue to improve over previous iterations. You can go to a couple different ones and probably see different ones, and if you tell me when they were built, I can probably tell you
Talking about the new ones.
what the layout's gonna be. Yeah, and even,
Because here you've got the counter at the door.
Yep.
That's different than most of the new stores you've done where the counter's in the middle.
previous new stores. I mean, so,
Well, I mean, I was in one today, and
Yeah.
it was New Hampshire.
yeah.
But I don't want to debate, I'm just concern that, you're cutting your nose to spite your face, because, a tractor trailer is gonna be blocking 6 of these spaces.
It seems like where the tractor trailer wants to go is by spaces 12 and 13. I mean, that keeps it most
I agree.
out of the way, and so then,
But that's only gonna take the cab. You've got another 40 feet of box behind that cab. So my point is.
I would think it's
gonna-
Paved
That's
behind
gonna
it
be-
too.
switched around. Yeah.
Well, that's a dumpster, so
Yeah.
I don't know that there's gonna be back ends there, but perhaps they are. That's why, if they're gonna back into there, I'm curious as to why this is a landscape area, because that would be more suitable for loading area, or unloading area, but nevertheless.
I think we might lose more spaces. That way, if we turn that landscape area into something else. If we look at spaces 12 and 13, look to either make those employee spaces so we have full control of those spaces, or block them out so they're only a loading zone. I think then you've got, a pretty significant area on the southerly side of that site, southeasterly side of the site, with good connectivity through pavement or concrete to that back loading door. So you have, all along that southerly side of the parking area, that's where you've got the cab and the box of, biggest case scenario, one of the big trucks, and it's out of the way of the internal site circulation.
Well, I asked because obviously we're talking about traffic. You've got, you're gonna be losing some parking spaces, and you're gonna have a truck taking some of those spaces. You've got gas customers who are trying to pull out of a, gas island, and they're blocked by a truck. My concern is that any of that overflows out into the street in terms of flow.
Are you thinking that the truck is going to be along this line?
Well, I mean, there's no other place for it to go.
To come right in here?
Yep.
And back up, so the truck is
And
going to be
back
a
up
long way
to
there.
here.
Yep.
But then you've got a landscape area, and
So
what
I
are they gonna
think-
do? Come out and, look, a truck driver's gonna find the easiest and fastest place to unload. If this landscape area is paved so that a hand truck can be, or a pallet jack, or whatever they're using, can come, I don't see a door on the side, so.
Back here.
you know,
It is all, this
Easterly side of the building.
speckled. is
That's all pavement,
Hey,
right?
Yeah.
Right, but where's the door?
Easterly side of the site? Yep.
Really?
Really? They're gonna,
Okay, Cumberland's paying them, they're drivers. So, if they're paying them, they can tell them how to park.
I agree, and they can tell them, but what's gonna happen is gonna come to the front door, but that's a whole different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
What about when we're filling the gas tanks, right? Those are here? Right?
Those are on the.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
these?
Yes,
Is the
correct.
truck just gonna go between 18 and 22 parking spaces?
Yes. It'll pull over those and discharge on the right side, on the passenger side.
Okay, so it'll like kind of come through this line of parking?
Correct.
Okay.
And those are also controlled by Cumberland Farms,
The deliveries of the
the fuel.
fuel?
Yes.
Nice to be
Swan?
vertically integrated sometime. Nice to be vertically integrated.
Yes, right, right.
All right, do we have any other questions related to the pier? I'm sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
Yes, so I understand that the peak period for the entire day is in the morning between 7 and 8, is that correct?
7:30 and 8:30.
7:30 and 8:30. It was, but I'm actually more concerned about the impact of the afternoon peak, because people will learn to leave earlier in the morning to get to work on time. The buses can even start earlier to get the schools, kids in school on time, which will add to their time on the bus, but in the afternoon, you can't let the schools out early. So what's going to happen is, it's going to affect the time that they're dropped off at home later, in the afternoon, all of the schools. So my concern is more about the impact of the afternoon peak on everything, because, family situations are very complicated, and everyone has their own schedule, but there are a lot of high school kids that take care of elementary school kids, that those schools get out at the same time. You have daycare issues, you have parents that rely on a consistent schedule. So my concern is the impact that it's going to have on, the school transportation due to the afternoon peak period. So I wanted to ask you, has there been any peer review or study done on the afternoon peak impact?
Our recollection is they looked at the afternoon peak as part of your assessment, so they did go out there and look at, and I'm not sure what that exact peak hour was, if it was 2 to 3 or 2:30 to 3:30, but they did look at, they counted the school driveways and looked at the impacts during that time period, so it wasn't.
I don't see anything.
That might have been one of the questions, because the high school gets out before. I think that now it's,
And
I
the
think the
peak was
peak was, they showed us 4 and 5.
the afternoon peak was a little bit after when the high school got out, which is, I
Yes.
think that was, now it's coming back a little bit.
Yes. Yeah, I think originally the peak was like 2:30 to 3, and we said it should be 2 to.
In the afternoon?
2:30, 3:30.
That
we said
surprises me. I thought
it should be 2 to.
rate of people coming home from work would be greater than the school hours.
Right, you know, what they.
Yeah, but there's a burst, there's just
I
a
understand
burst,
that, but I mean,
which is what.
Yeah.
Well, the videos that I have were all between 2 and 3. And
Right.
it backs all the way up to the high school. So I didn't see anything in the peer reviewer report on the.
No, it looks as though what happened was they did the counts from 2 to 6, and then the purpose was to say what's the busiest time period in there. So they were able to look at the school peak versus the weekday evening commuter peak and see what was busier, and the weekday evening commuter peak was the busier time period. So that's what they utilized for analysis. Typically, what we try to do is take the highest volume in the hour that you study. So they looked at 2 to 6, and say 5 to 6 was the heaviest. So you take that highest hour, and then one of the things that we never talk about, the conservative nature of the way we do these studies, is we assume that the peak hour of the generator, the gas station convenience store, will be coincident with that. So, the gas station, like you said, might peak from 4 to 5, might be earlier in the day, people trying to avoid it, but we assume that they happen at the same time. So they did count from 2 to 6, so they captured the data for the school peak, but the school peak ultimately wasn't the busiest time. It was still that evening commuter peak that was busier.
Okay. And again, I'm just reflecting back on the superintendent's letter to us. And his concern is transportation, safety of the students, making sure they get home before it gets dark. Some of them are latchkey kids, and, that's the nature of society today. So I know that was a lot of his concern. And even though, the school peak is not the afternoon peak because of, employee traffic from people coming home from work and, the rush hour later in the day, I still think as far as the impact on our town is significant, that we need to consider it. To be honest with you, if somebody's driving home off of 495 and going to Attleboro, that's less of a, and they have to wait an extra 10 minutes in the light, that's less of a concern to me than, a kid that gets home at 4:45 in the dark, who's a Norton resident.
Can I ask just a quick question? This was attached, and that's a different system than I've seen previously for identifying times?
I believe what the applicant did is we had asked them to take a look at the Saturday midday peak. Typically, when you have retail establishments, you'll sometimes look at the evening peak and then your Saturday. For gas stations, often the morning and evening are your busiest times. So what they did is they found some Mass DOT count data that was collected on Route 123 to let them look at how does Saturday data compare to weekday data. And what it showed was the Saturday data was quite a bit lower, on the order of 20% lower. So in lieu of doing all the counts and counting school driveways that are going to be, fairly low volume on the weekend when the school's not in session, they simply said, look, the volumes are lower, our generation is lower. We'd be basically analyzing a more or less conservative assessment that we have already, so there really wasn't a need for it. And we agree with that. If the volumes on Saturday are lower and the gas station convenience store volumes are lower, there's no reason to look at Saturday midday when weekday PM is going to be a more critical time period.
So there was,
It's not an actual count, they tested out of it, doing that count, so to speak.
Well, no, it's a real count. It just was
It's not specific to this site.
No. I mean, they could have put a road tube in front of the site on Route 123, and they would have got the same data as using basically, they saved the client some money by using the state's data versus doing a new count, and we have no issue with that. The data, I don't suspect the volumes on 123 and the patterns have changed dramatically over the last year. I think it validates the fact that weekday is critical.
All right, anyone else with questions here?
I've got one, Steve.
Go ahead.
I know this is on the site plan and not necessarily on the traffic, but can we go over the site triangles if you have those prepared?
Sure.
Since we're, I think, talking a lot around safety, so I think that'd be just interesting to see.
So we show the two site triangles on the site plan. I believe the stopping site distance was 279 feet in each direction.
Could you point out what you're talking about?
The orange and red lines shown on here, taken at each driveway exit.
So that, to the immediate right of that lot line, is that where the buses come out now for the,
No, it's not adjacent to this
What?
hill.
where,
That's where the buses come up from the
Yeah.
Yell.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's where they come
Yeah.
out for the elementary school, yes.
is there a curve in that road, or is that flat?
It's
That's a-
hilled, right?
Yes.
Well, okay, I'm just saying, so can they see those buses coming out, or?
No, it's
Straight. It's fairly-
It's pretty
flat.
close. It's a close
after-
driveway.
The
Yeah.
curved is on a hill, but the yellow
Yeah, so
driveway is
There's a
after
drive
the
right there, it comes out.
flat.
And that's them. So it's right, basically right on the other side of the fence.
Yeah, here's this.
Oh, yeah, that's
It's
even
right
better.
there.
Yeah, see, right.
Yeah, but there's a curve in the road there? Slight curve?
Slight.
In the main road?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slight. So I drove it.
Yeah, in our traffic study, we had listed site distances. So the west driveway, you've got over 700 feet of site distance looking left, which is to the west, and looking to the right.
You could have a car, so your driveways go both ways, correct?
Yeah.
So you could have a car coming out, taking a left-hand turn out of that driveway, at the same time you've got a bus coming out of the other driveway going, or taking a right-hand turn? And the two of them may not even be seeing each other.
I don't know how they wouldn't see each other.
They're coming from spaces that are on a curve.
Well, there's a crossing
Nothing
right there,
there,
too.
Yeah.
There's a sign.
I think curve's a tough thing to say for what's happening there.
I don't know, I'm asking, I'm just saying, your site triangle doesn't include that area. So they're not seeing.
Is there an elevation change there?
The site triangle
No.
carves out, doesn't show that area.
I mean, I don't understand.
Could you put the site triangle off the elementary school driveway so we could see how they intersect?
From here and then see where
Yeah,
that.
see how they intersect? I think that would be helpful.
That driveway is forked too, the Yell.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does. It has an island in between.
Yep.
Yeah.
So with a telephone pole, it's a little interesting to navigate. So maybe if we could overlap them, so maybe we could even see, I mean, I might even go as far as saying the ones on the opposite side of the street, just to make sure all people can see each other. I know I personally had the comment on making sure that we potentially align driveways, so we're looking kind of straight across at someone who might be trying to, me take a left, them take a right, and we don't want to be going at the same time. So it might be good if there's a way to kind of overlap those site distances to make sure that everybody is capable of seeing everybody else. Is that fair?
So.
Yeah, coming out of
just-
the Yell,
Especially, right?
I don't see an issue with that there
Are
at all.
those trucks or cars coming out?
Well, the buses are
Buses.
coming out of there during the morning and the afternoon, and then after school, the after-school program uses that driveway for in and out for any parent who's picking up at the after-school program. They do not use the front entrance, I'll call it, they use that back entrance for
And that's
after-school.
usually between like 5 and 6. 4:30 and 6.
Yeah. So maybe if we could just, make sure there's clean line of sight.
But just so everybody knows, it's not only, like, your kids play Pop Warner? So there are hundreds of people out there at night in the fall in the late summer. Probably many more cars than getting after school. And
Oh,
the-
that's a good point, Kevin, yeah. Yep.
The previous building there, the Bank of America, that was a one-way access on the right, coming in and coming out.
Can I just ask to clarify, so you want the sight lines from our site driveway, from the school?
I think, yeah, Maureen, especially for the two driveways that are coming from the Yell, there's an island, there's like an island there, but, there's two.
We're here and we're at our site driveway.
Yeah. So, see this, I don't know if you can actually see it
Would
in
it help
there,
to
but
have
there's
one
an,
down this?
there's like a little bit of an island. You
but
can go
yeah, I
in
think
on
it would
one
help.
side and, in and out on each side.
help
So
having
just
one-way driving-
look at
driveways?
those to make sure we've
Okay.
got
So our
overlapping
site
sight lines.
But,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Let it know.
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
Okay.
What'd you say, Scott?
That wouldn't work for a gas station.
He said if you force it all in one direction, then you create an unknown negative.
Oh, we didn't think of that. Let me back up.
Because everybody drives, because
And,
everybody,
People
people
are gonna
drive
go
their
in
gas
anyway.
tanks on.
and did, I guess, do you have the turning, truck turning radius analysis?
That's one of the peer review comments. Still needs to be addressed. Yeah, that's one of the comments from the peer review on the site plan.
He said he had it.
These haven't been part of the submission yet.
Okay.
We've got them, we show
So we can go through them when we go through the site plan?
vehicle
Okay.
traffic, yeah. And we'll make sure that you have those,
Okay.
the week before, so you can see them all, but suffice it to say, they all work.
So just, Mr. Chairman, just to sum up my comments, I'm concerned about the whole day, because there are multiple impacts, not just the two peak hours of the day, AM and PM. So I don't know how to handle that, or how to think through it, or how to address it, but, there are multiple things that happen during the day, like we have, Wheaton students will probably use this place during, they'll probably go there during the day, and you get the school hours, you got the traffic, people coming home from work later in the day. You got things going on late morning with people from the senior center walking in wheelchairs and that. So the whole thing, to me, adds to the level of safety concerns, maybe more than traffic, in my opinion, and traffic with the schools. But just, it's a dense area, and to add to our problems and concerns and congestion doesn't feel right with me. Regardless of what we need to do as a board, to do our jobs correctly, just from a overall big picture, it doesn't really seem right to have, a gas station right where we have our biggest problems with congestion in the town. So,
Does anyone
doesn't mean
have
I'm gonna
any-
vote either way because of that, that's voicing my concerns.
Does anyone have any further questions on this peer review?
Well, I just think, I'd like to see more data in terms of those issues, and there are concerns there. And, I haven't had a chance to drive by that areas, but I take it from what the board has said, there's ongoing concerns with that area, and I haven't really seen that depicted in any of the materials we've seen.
Yeah, I think what Tim had mentioned earlier, I won't speak for you, but
Yeah.
as far as, we need to go back and look at exactly what we had asked before and make sure that that's addressed, and come up with a reasonable list of what we're looking for as far as data. But I completely agree with Kevin that safety is the number one issue.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tim.
I think I'll stop there. And,
All right.
I do have, I think, one more comment that's not related to the peer review, so I'll save and
All right, I wanted to see if anybody in the audience had any questions on this. You can come on up, yeah. Just make sure you say your name and your address, and ask us, and we'll have them respond afterwards, okay?
My name is Sue Lieber. I live at 16 Seminary Way. One of the questions, I don't know if it's something that was being discussed or not tonight, but you mentioned the deliveries and the delivery of gas, and that's controlled by Cumberland Farms, so I didn't know what the timeframes were on that, as I am a direct abutter, just trying to figure out when those may be, or if that's something that's discussed later down the road.
From my understanding, we're gonna discuss that.
So that's something later?
Yeah, we're still gonna
Okay,
be
this was
talking about
just
that.
we're glancing at it from an overview right now.
Yeah, we're only taking a little portion of it tonight.
Nope, perfect.
Yeah,
That was my only question.
but it's a
Thank-
valid question. I
Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience? No? Okay. Further questions from the
Yes.
boards?
Probably just a question for you, Mr. Reed. This is not necessarily related to this project. It's primarily just to kind of get it on the record. Kind of driving by this site, there seems to be a lot of activity right now. I just wanted to kind of confirm that that's related to the site being used in conjunction with the sewer project.
I have no idea. I'll get you an answer, and I'll let Paul know.
Okay.
I think there's a question in town is if
Yes.
Cumberland Farms is already
Oh,
working.
no.
Okay, so, yeah, I
Cumberland Farms is
wanted to
not
get that on the
working.
record, just to be, it's not Cumberland
Big
Farms
yellow
doing work
construction
there.
vehicles.
Yes. No.
Because I sit on the board, I've kind of pieced together, but I think for people in town who vote at town meeting with this project in mind, and all of a sudden see,
Interesting.
yeah.
Got it.
So I'm not sure,
Yeah,
I'm sure
It
I'm not
looks
the.
like it's a staging area. I'm gonna put it that way.
Okay.
So,
It's the generosity of the landowner.
I had,
The water department.
hold on,
Yeah.
We're fine.
yeah, no, I had actually initially asked that question a couple weeks back.
Okay.
And I was told it was for the sewer project and not Cumberland Farms, because I wanted to make sure that they weren't starting construction without us knowing about it. So,
Yeah, not their MO,
that's-
but no, it's not Cumberland Farms.
Yeah. Okay.
I
I think that was just for the record for everybody, so.
Thanks. And maybe I guess to hop on traffic and just, to keep the process moving and hearing what the board's saying, I think part of it is, we didn't know what was going to happen, and so when we got to June and then school's out and we didn't know what was going to happen in September, October, obviously town meeting ended up the way we hoped it would, and it did, and so I think now would be a good time to get Maureen and her crew back out to do some additional studies. And so I don't know if it, understanding your concern about it's the whole day, I just don't know, and I'm only a lawyer, that's best practice for traffic engineers to try to look at that whole thing versus, 7 to 9 and then 2 to 6, include an additional piece of that study area, that intersection of 140 and 123, to see what the impact is there, to look at the queue, eastbound, westbound. I don't know, besides that, while school's in session, while the seniors are there, when it's not a snow day or something like that. I don't know if there's anything else that the board was looking for as we're thinking about what that scope is, just to make sure, they do it once, they get you the data that you need. You can believe it once they do it or not, but at least it'll be a data set that you can say, okay, this is what we asked
Some
for.
sightlines, some.
Yeah, of course, and those sight lines that Julie mentioned, yeah, for sure. And we'll look back at that video as well to see if what I've just said, plus what that video has, to see if there's anything else that we're missing, just to make sure that there's an integrated plan. Like I said, you might, we all have anecdotal traffic experiences, which we can, a lot of times I tell Maureen she has the hardest job because, a lot of people say, well, I saw this, or I saw that, or I know it does this, and she says, yeah, but here's what the data says. So we'll do the best we can to collect the data. We understand the concerns, we understand that school safety, and I think safety for Cumberland Farms is huge as well, because, if it becomes, like Maureen mentioned, it's a convenient use, right? And if it becomes inconvenient or dangerous, their business goes down dramatically. It's just human nature. And I don't think Cumberland Farms wants to be on the front page of any newspaper because of any sort of accident that happened, pedestrian, vehicular, or otherwise. So I think they're sensitive to it as well, and if it means us being more sensitive to it to listen to you, then of course we're going to do it.
Yeah, for me, I think getting the most accurate picture of the traffic flow and
Okay.
and the pedestrian flow, so we can make the right decision and, put in place any safety precautions ahead of time if it comes to that, but,
May I ask, so it sounds like everybody was comfortable with your work and through the peer review for the AM peak time, and then you identified a 5 to 6 for the PM.
And they studied 2 to 6, and they just identified that 5 to 6 of that was the peak hour.
Okay, good. So from all of that information, can you come up with just a percentage increase in traffic in general, extrapolated or interpolated for the whole day,
Based upon the addition of a Cumberland Farms
Right.
retail and gas
Yeah,
station?
like, for example, during AM peak, it's gonna go up 20%. During
Oh,
PM,
yeah,
It's
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
go up 30. During 2 to 6, 2 to 3, it's gonna go up, 15, or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Because then it's easy to look at a percentage increase. We can go out there and actually visually look at the traffic and try to, see, okay, well, there are 20 cars backed up, and, 20% increase is gonna add 4 more, and what's that gonna look like?
Got it, yeah.
That would be probably an easiest way for us to understand it all, right, than all these charts and graphs.
Yeah, we can certainly do that.
I like pictures.
Yeah, we'll provide the charts and graphs, but we'll also distill it down to say, here's what we're talking.
Over current.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure,
By hour.
yeah, by hour, yeah.
sure.
Yeah, and if you have a
Maureen?
chance, go
Wanna make
take a
any
look
comments
during the
before-
peak hours.
No, I was actually just calculating it, but yeah.
Yes, we can do it.
I would
We will do
suggest
it.
anybody, if you have the opportunity to just take a look.
Yeah, just don't
You're
go
around
big
there.
time.
Just don't knock on the door.
I'll be there at peak time tomorrow morning.
Where is
All right.
it, 7:30?
Any further?
8:30 speak? What time speak in the morning, 7:30, 8:30?
7:30 to 8:30, yeah.
On a weekday.
Daycare drop-off.
Yeah. All right.
Are we going to be
Do we have,
beyond traffic? Are we going to talk about the site itself? I mean, this is part of the site.
not tonight.
Okay.
No.
And I think you should have updated, what we'll do, Orin, is we'll put together that letter, we'll highlight exactly what those changes are, just so you don't have to,
Play Where's Waldo?
thank you, I was trying to think of a good game, it's just, there's another one that you play at the bar where something's missing, or something's different in the picture, but,
I've got to compliment you. You're
Dating
very
myself.
cooperative, and I appreciate it. I think the board appreciates you. You're willing to cooperate and provide us with the information that we're looking for. Thank
trying to
you.
make a good, we're trying to make a good project.
I understand.
mean, that's
Thank
the- And if you don't like it at the end of the day, then at least we did the best we could do.
Thank you.
So what we're looking to do is continue this to the 3rd, is that?
Right, and especially if you
December
get that
3rd.
application
Yeah,
to us.
we'll get that in. You don't mind overnight mail, do you?
We love it.
Okay.
Good.
So unless there are any further questions, we'll look for a motion to continue this to the December 3rd.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right,
Okay, thanks a lot.
thank you.
See you soon. Happy Thanksgiving in the interim.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you.
All right, so the last thing we have is some scheduling stuff. It looks like we have a meeting next week. We still have a meeting going on, folks.
On Monday, right?
Yeah. Is it Monday? No.
Could you go over those, because I was away when you guys were making it.
So, well, what I'm getting to is next week's meeting, we don't really have anything, so we can cancel that.
The one on the 19th,
The
Steve?
19th, yep.
That's it, because I wasn't going to be there anyway.
Yeah. So unless there's any, unless something happened between the beginning of the meeting and now.
It did not.
Oh,
Okay,
did something
so-
come through?
So we can, as long as everybody's okay with it, we're gonna cancel that.
I demand there be a meeting.
Okay, you show up, we'll be here. So let's see, we have into December.
Okay, so we've got the 19th.
So I think we should do,
We're gonna
just
cancel.
like Kevin had said, the second and third Tuesday of every month after that,
With the 3rd.
Oh, the
Starting
third
in
is-
in January?
starting in January, yep.
So,
All right, so what do we have?
in December,
December 3rd,
December 3rd and 17th. I'm sorry, just 3rd and
17th.
17th, yeah.
So,
So we have January 7th and
let's see.
21st.
I would not be available on the 21st. I would be in Florida for work, which
December
would be worse.
Rub it in, Tim.
I'll be there for work, so it's not even.
Oh, yeah.
You're in the
okay.
sun,
Yeah.
okay, in January.
So, I'm sorry, so what's the January date you have now? I'm sorry.
The 7th and 21st.
7? And the 20,
If we're, yeah.
When are you gone?
21st, I would not be there.
When's your trip?
It's the 20th, 21st, 22nd.
Well, if we change that to the 28th, is everybody available on the 28th?
Mhm.
Yep.
All right. So let's do the 7th and 28th. And then we're looking at February the,
okay, so hold on. Fourth. So we're not doing the 21st?
First and 3rd in February again?
yeah.
Before and 18th?
January 28th, so February 11th?
4th and 18th.
I'll do the 4th and 18th.
Well, you have one on the 28th. You can have one.
He wants to try and keep it first and third of
Yeah.
in the month.
Or second and third. No, second, whatever. Yeah, first and third.
2, 4.
I probably wouldn't be able to do the 11th anyway.
Can we leave it at that? I mean, you're getting too far out in terms of,
Oh, we're gonna keep going. We're gonna do at least 6 months.
really?
Yep.
Okay.
You can always
I thought you were gonna go.
modify it after.
We can do 6 months. I don't think there's a problem with that.
Looks like
The-
March.
The Board of Selectmen does a year. I mean, other boards do a year. We can do 6 months.
So you want the February 18th?
February 4th and 18th.
Is that President's Day, or that week? Is it school
Yes,
vacation
it
week?
is. That would be.
Which one is that?
vacation week.
The second one
I'm
would
on
be
my-
school vacation week,
I'm on the wrong calendar.
The 17th is President's Day.
so that would be school vacation week.
Okay.
So would you want to push it to the 25th?
Yeah, my problem is we're getting too spread out. I would say the 11th and the 25th then.
All right.
I can't do the 11th, but I'm just saying that.
What about everybody else?
Okay, come back. So instead of the 4th, you're doing the 11th?
Yeah.
So it's the 11th and 25th?
11th and 25th, yep.
And March, I can't do the 3rd.
So the 10th and 24th?
I'm okay with the 10th and 24th, yeah.
You're doing a lot of traveling in this new job, Tim.
Yeah. It's trade show
Even though-
season.
Even though your office is right in Taunton, it seems like you're away more now than
Trade shows.
when you had the hour-and-a-half commute. What's that?
Everybody got that March 10th and 24th?
No, stay with me, hold it. So I got the 25th of February, so it's March,
10th and
10
24th.
and 24th.
Election day in April is then.
I don't know. Do you know when the election day is in April?
Let's see.
First week usually, I thought.
Didn't it get moved to Saturday?
We have Passover on the
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they did say
8th.
that.
Yeah. So we can schedule April 7th and 21st.
I won't be here on the 21st.
Is that a vacation?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
April vacation.
Yeah, I won't be then. I won't be either.
so. we're
So
on
we'll do the 7th and 28th.
When's the elections? We doing it past the elections, or we're just gonna?
Yep.
So what day do you have in April?
7 and 28.
We'll have the same people after the election, don't worry.
7 and 28.
Even when you leave, you come back, right, Kevin?
Yeah, exactly.
We do have to start thinking about, because April, we have a town meeting in May.
Yeah.
So we just need to think about that. We
Well,
don't-
that gives us room if we have to add a meeting.
Yeah.
We can add one. Yeah, I definitely don't want to do what we did last time, so.
Why not?
So, I'm sorry, so it's 7
Yeah.
and 28?
Yeah.
we're in this,
Get kicked
yeah,
out
7
next
and 28.
Yep. I think I'm still bleeding from that.
That's tough.
Let's see.
So,
May 5th and 19th?
Cinco de Mayo.
Oh, yeah. Actually, no, we're on the 28th. I'm thinking, skip a week, so the 12th and 26th.
Of May?
Yeah.
Day after Memorial Day?
Oh, jeez. How about the 12th and 19th then?
I'm gonna have something in May. Let me figure out the dates.
What's wrong?
You're very difficult.
5th and 19th?
5th and 19th works.
5th and 19th? Yeah, okay.
Probably not the 5th for me, but I don't know yet.
You keep this up, we'll see that you're not reelected.
That's true.
So we got the 5th and
None of us
19th.
will be voting for you.
Joe, is that a threat?
I'm doing you a favor.
One more month, guys.
All right, sorry.
What do
So
we
what
do
was
in
on
May?
May? I'm sorry, what's on?
5th and 19th.
5th and 19th?
I'm okay moving it to the 12th instead of the 5th, just because we have the 28th before that, so
Well, hold it.
what do you think?
Hold on, Orin's catching up.
5th and then, this is May.
Yeah. 5th and 19th, Orin.
Hey,
So far ahead.
I know.
19.
Priority
You're
changes
gonna be
every day.
sending
I know.
I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow.
Nicole.
I'm gonna send you the
I know,
poll tomorrow.
All I know is my trade show issues, which I know through October, so.
All right,
All right, so 5th and 19th.
sure.
And Tuesdays doesn't help, right? So what'd you do for May? 12 and
5th and 19th.
5th and 19th.
For May.
Yeah.
dress up on the 5th?
So June will be the 9th and 23rd.
Well, it feels nice to plan something in warm weather.
Yeah, right? We can keep going.
Or not.
Why?
No,
I think now we're getting into summer,
Yeah.
and I think.
no,
we're just
nobody
asking-
knows what they're
I
doing
mean, you
yet.
can plan it.
Don't
What do you
go-
have against summer? Right?
No, don't go.
Because everybody's gonna plan stuff.
But it may help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can
You
just
should be
post
planning
it.
around this.
Civic duty.
I will decline to respond.
All right, through June is good for me.
Yeah. Do we wanna have, do you wanna,
Okay, can we just walk through
Paul,
this?
do you wanna
I've got-
restate those?
Yeah.
All right, December 3rd, December 17th, January 7th, January 28th, February, is it 11th?
Yes.
Yep.
February 25th, March 10th, March 24th, April 7th, April 28th, May 5th, May 19th, June 9th, June 23rd.
Got it.
Now, Julie, none of those are within school vacations, right?
That's correct.
Okay, good.
Yep.
We've only probably missed 4 holidays.
Yeah. Excellent.
Harder for me on Mondays though, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to? We can.
Tough. Get every Monday
Same
off.
as Monday holidays.
I know.
Okay.
All right, unless there's anything else, we can look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Yep. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you all.